Continuing to keep you updated on the Mica Francis and John Paul.
Here's Not By Sight News, y'all. Make sure you give him a follow. Down in the description, you'll find his channel. Awesome coverage. Let's keep going.
Miller case. We got a lot to get into today. I have a lot to say. I'm going to be dissecting some things, looking at some things, as I always do, from a biblical perspective, and analyzing what is now developed with Solid Rock Church, but also with JP. As we know, he has been making the media rounds. However, it appears as though JP was not very happy with NeesNation. Of course, he sat down.
Oh, Lord. He wasn't happy with NeesNation? Why?
And with Rich McHugh, and they did that hour-long, interview. Actually, it was about 2 hours, except that NeesNation did not show the entire thing. But apparently, JP was not happy at how the interview was conducted. In fact, he accused NeesNation of making him look bad. And so JP decided that, he was going to release the uncut, unedited version of that interview. Well, how did he release it? Where did he release it? We're going to talk about that. Also,
I didn't know this. Did y'all know this?
A secret letter released to Solid Rock congregants from JP. What was that all about? And what in the world is going on at Solid Rock Church? We got so much to get into. We're going to talk about it, but before we do, I want to welcome all of you to Not By Sight News. Yes, a blind Christian guy here reporting to you, reminding you as always that we walk by faith, not by sight. For someone like me, that's kind of my only option. Speaking of that, those interested, you want to know my story. How did I go blind? How do I operate my entire ministry without being able to see? I made a video that explains it all. You will find a link to that in the description section of all my videos. And if you really enjoy and appreciate my work, and you would like to contribute with a donation to help me out, a couple different ways you can do that. One, by just hitting the super thanks button on the YT video, or join the Patreon for as little as $5 a month, patreon.com/notbysightnews. Link in the description. You guys want to get access to all of these videos before they hit the main YT channel? Well, when you join my Patreon, that's exactly what you're going to get, along with a bunch of other cool features. I hope you'll check it out and join me. Again, it's patreon.com/notbysightnews. Big thank you to everybody already contributing and those thinking of doing so. Thank you as well. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. All right, where do I want to start? Let's get into JP and his latest interviews. Now, I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit here. That's just kind of what I do. I prepare. I've said this to you guys before, but sometimes we have new people that come in. I prepare these videos a lot differently than other creators with full sight. As somebody who has no sight, I am completely blind, and you can learn more about how that happened. Again, in the video link that I provide in the description section of all my videos, the whole story of how I went blind, how it all happened. But I prepare a lot differently. I don't read from scripts. I don't, I can't read you from articles. I can't do all that. I have to really just memorize all of my points before each video that I do, and do it that way. I used to do it a lot different back in the day when I still had some sight before everything happened. So yeah, it's a different approach. So again, if I jumble around a little bit, again, forgive me, but I'm trying to remember all of my points here as best as I can. So you guys remember there was that TikTok channel called TruecrimeRi, and this is the avenue that JP
Kogo, no, this is Not By Sight News.
He was using to put out all of those videos. Remember, he was doing like almost a video every single night, not very long, maybe 2 minutes at most. Now, whether or not he was controlling that channel or not, I don't really know. There's been talks that it was run by a female. Maybe it was. I can't confirm that. But then all of a sudden, all of those videos were gone. And, seemingly the TruecrimeRi disappeared, except it has now resurfaced. But instead of it being on TikTok, it is now on YouTube. And all of a sudden,
whoa!
Now we are getting videos back on TruecrimeRi. Just this time, it's over on YouTube. And so far, there's been a couple of videos that have been released to that channel. Now, I am not subbed to that channel, I will tell you. So, if you want to go check it out, you guys can go search that and go watch the stuff over there if you want to. But we have had at least, there could be more by the time some of you are watching this, but there had been in the last couple of days at least two uploads over on that platform. Now, one of them was the conversation that JP had with DJ. Now, I talked about this in a previous video, and if you missed it, you can go back on my channel and check it out. But I'm just trying to bring those up to speed that may have missed some of what's been going on the last several days. But of course, DJ was the young man that Mica was with on the beach. It was, that infamous day of March 11th, where JP had hired the PI to track Mica down. And then, there
we find out if that was real or staged, because I heard so many people saying, no, it was staged. that whole phone call was staged. Does anybody know definitively yet? Have we figured that out yet? I don't know.
Was this kiss that was apparently exchanged between DJ and Mica, and the PI had then reportedly, got back to JP with the findings, and then there was a conversation between JP and DJ, an audio recording which was put out on that TruecrimeRi channel. And again, I talked about it in a previous video, but this is what you have to understand is that whether, again, it's JP controlling the channel or somebody else on his behalf, he is thinking that these videos are going to help his case, help him, with his view, with the public opinion of him, which I know is way low. He's not looked upon as very favorably in the court of public opinion. So you got JP questioning DJ and, telling him all things that, you know what you did with her was adultery. I mean, this is JP giving a lecture on adultery is just hysterical to me. I wonder how many people would actually show up for that service if that was an actual title of a sermon. But, he's just, look, the kid's young. Look, he looked to this guy as his mentor. DJ was going to, JP was really like prepping him to take over the church one day, to be the next pastor. And so, this is somebody that, again,
I didn't know that.
DJ looked up to, maybe even idolized. He sounds very scared during the conversation, and a lot of people have been criticizing him, saying, oh, he should have shown more guts. He should have. I get it. I do. But, remember, he's someone that looked up to this guy, that being JP, and, he just got caught with his wife. And I say that very loosely just because, of course, Mica had already moved on from JP at that point. They weren't living together. They were completely apart. Remember, this also came a month after JP had tried to put her into the mental hospital against her will. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. And look, even JP was running around with Susie Skinner for a couple of years. What about, him leaving his phone number for that waitress back in February, the month prior to this, with DJ and Mica on the beach? Look, this guy is no beacon of morality by any means and shouldn't be lecturing anybody about adultery. But yeah, they put that audio recording up there. Again, JP thinks this is going to help his image. But not only that, we had the 2-hour-long, full uncut version of JP on NeesNation with Rich McHugh. And again, NeesNation did not show everything. JP was not happy about the way that he was portrayed. Maybe it was just the fact that the whole interview wasn't received very well, maybe by people in the comment section, those that watched it on NeesNation. And he thought maybe that it would, so he's like, you know what, I'm just going to release the video myself. So he recorded this. Now, for those who don't know, the interview was actually conducted at Solid Rock Church. So,
Oh, so he recorded like he does his services or whatever when they were doing the interview, and he released just the full-on thing. Oh, my word.
JP was there with Rich McHugh, and whether he had some sort of a recording device in his pocket or the cameras at Solid Rock, whether, he turned the recorders on that way, whatever the case, he recorded it, which, you're often going to see people do when they're being interviewed by the media because you never know how things are going to come out. So I can understand why he did it. Did NeesNation know he did it? I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But remember, Rich had said that, JP had texted him a bunch of times after the interview was over and talked about how, oh, I'm sorry, that was another lie that I said earlier. And, Rich talked about how it was like being on a roller coaster with this guy for 2 hours, and he was just trying to hang on and trying to get through all of his questions as best as he could. So, the whole thing is up there. And again, you can go to the TruecrimeRi channel. You can look at the full 2 hours. I will tell you that I don't think it made him look any better at all. In fact, NeesNation's probably, with whatever edits that they did make, and again, remember, they didn't include everything, probably made him look better than him putting out the full 2 hours, the uncut version. As far as what was said during that, a lot of it you heard already, but then there was, a lot of it too was more of him blaming her family, blaming Mica's family for everything that occurred. They even had brought up the whole, incident with, well, what about you and another woman? Because about him living apart from Mica and the waitress, and he says, well, we were separated. So if you say that, you say, well, we were separated, but then at other parts in the interview, he says that, well, we weren't. Just because we weren't living together doesn't mean that, there's still not love there. So he jumped all over the place and talked about, well, the only reason that we were really apart was because of Mica's mental illness. That's the only reason. Another thing that I picked up from the uncut version was the question that Rich asked him about, why did you, go into Mica's apartment after she passed away? Because that's something that, we've all talked about now for months. Because, there's talks he allegedly was going in there and trying to get rid of evidence, and he just passed it off as, well, she was my wife. I wanted to get some of her things to remember her by. And, she had these things that I liked her or whatever. So, the spinning here was was definitely on full display. So again, if the goal here was to, release this uncut version to somehow make him look better, I think it failed. I think it absolutely failed. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again. It's 2 hours long. I mean, look, even I have my limits. I listen to I have to say I listen to JP so you don't have to, and I know a lot of you, appreciate that about me. But again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. If you guys want to, you can. But just the basic thing you got to know is it was a lot of spinning and a lot more of pointing the finger at Mica's family. But the next thing that I want to move on to here is, well, let's get into it. The letter. That's right. JP sending and then I'm going to get into
this part, y'all. This random email or something.
Everything, the events at Solid Rock for Sunday, July 28th. But JP had allegedly sent out this letter to congregants at Solid Rock. And it was basically thanking them for sticking with him through all that's gone on, through the bad media. He even at one point said that they will receive, and this was so weird, that they will receive heavenly rewards for their loyalty and by sticking with JP and Solid Rock Church. I don't know about that. That to me sounds like, I'll just be honest, cult talk to me. And again, how many people are left at
pretty crazy
Solid Rock? Like 30, if that. And really, it's just the loyalists, or people that JP has something on, that are, can't leave even if they maybe want to. So again, he sent this out, but that wasn't all. Again, he thanked the people that were still there for him and sticking by his side, and promised that they were going to receive heavenly rewards. Isn't there another religion? I mean, I think you know what I'm saying. Is there another religion that promises people that when they die and they go to heaven, they're going to receive a special gift, if you know what I mean? Or you guys know what I mean, right? It kind of had that vibe to it in a way, like heavenly rewards. Like, no. Here's the thing. Actually, yeah, let me get into that for a second. I talked about providing some biblical perspective, and I want to, because you're not going to receive heavenly rewards for sticking by a pastor or sticking by a quote unquote church. You receive heavenly rewards, okay, for, how your Christian walk is here on this earth. The Bible talks about, receiving the crowns, right? But what are we going to do with the crowns? Are we going to take the crown and we're going to, run around heaven with it? No, we're going to take the crown that Jesus gives us and we're going to place it at his feet, right? We're going to give it right back to him. And again, these are, based off our dedication unto him and our walk with the Lord, and what we do for others. The Bible talks about many different, different crowns. So no, you're not going to get a heavenly reward for serving JP, the mighty JP, and sticking by him at his church with less than 30 people. I found that funny. But also in that letter, he mentions the NeesNation interview and says that, again, they didn't portray me the right way. They made me look bad. But I have a link to the real, full, uncut version. Then he actually linked the audio or the video over to the new TruecrimeRi channel on YouTube for all of his members of his church to go and watch. So again, it seems like it's very much like it's operating right now as a cult at Solid Rock rather than an actual church. And that actually is the perfect transition into what I want to get to now. And this will probably be my last point. I say probably because I'm like a pastor sometimes, when they say they're getting ready to close and they don't really. So, but maybe we'll see. I don't know. Again, you got to remember, I'm all over the place. I jump around. I prepare differently. So what went on at Solid Rock on Sunday, July 28th? As usual, the protests continued. And hey, you know what? Big shout out to all the protesters. I know, at least I've heard from some of them that watch me. And I know that the individual that plays Jesus out there, heard from him as well. He knows I spoke with him. Shout out to him. Him and JP have had some interesting confrontations over the last several weeks, as many of you probably already know. But there was apparently
hey, Soul Search in the house. Yeah, love your videos. We watch them. Y'all make sure you follow. Give her a subscribe. Greetings. Thank you for popping in. It's good to see you. Appreciate that.
A regular family that had tried to attend the church. Like I guess that maybe they're new to the area, to Myrtle Beach, and they didn't really have any idea about what was going on with JP, with Mica, the protests and everything else like that. And I know it seems strange, and the day and age we live in right now, where there's just so much social media and the news is coming out everywhere, it's hard to miss it. But yeah, I mean, there could still be people that do. So those that were, actually protesting there, they're the ones that had reported on this, that, yeah, you had a regular family. They went up to the doors of the church. They just like, okay, let's maybe look for churches in the area. They pop up on Google and here's Solid Rock at Market Common. They go up to the church and the door is locked. They can't get in. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. Like,
what?
You what?
Can you imagine going to the door of a church being like, what the hell? This is crazy.
How dare you?
And it wasn't as if they didn't have other people inside the building. Like, it was during regular church time, regular service time, but the doors were locked. And I'll get into that in a second. So the family, I guess they were like, okay, I guess they're locked. I don't know what's going on. And then they were actually approached by the protesters who actually filled them in on everything that's going on there at Solid Rock. And you can imagine, for this family, they pull up to the church and they see the protesters and they see the barricades and they
Thank you, Stephanie.
see, the start of the fence that JP had tried to put around the church. If you remember, I talked about that in a previous video. They got in trouble by the city because they didn't have any permit. They didn't have any permission to build this fence. But despite all of that, this family's still like, yeah, let's check out the church anyway. God bless them.
Whoa.
They didn't really know what was going on. And I think they were spared, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, the protesters apparently talked to them and informed them of what was going on and probably said, yeah, the doors are locked. Yeah, but you probably don't want to be a part of this church. So I guess then they were on their way after that. But let's talk about that, because the doors of Solid Rock were locked, right? The rock was locked. So
this is more like Alcatraz, not Solid Rock. See what I did there? Let's continue.
Why is that? Now, I want to point something out, because you remember it was a couple of weeks ago. Remember when, Robert Lachelle, remember the sprinkler incident? And then, of course, now we know he was arrested. There's a court date coming up for him, I believe, on August 14th. But JP had released a statement to the media, and he called the protesters evil. He said that, they're trying to prevent Christians from just, worshiping together for an hour, right? So, and he called them a bunch of other names too. But if his statement was, they're trying to prevent Christians from worshiping, but you had just a regular family that tries to attend and they can't even get into the building, right? Now, we also know that, obviously this church is losing money. And let's go back a little bit. See, I told you, I might not have been done yet. Things come up and I just thank the Lord. He brings things up in my mind. So if you remember back when everything happened with his first wife, Allison Williams, and how the church had lost like pretty much everybody. Remember there was allegedly these
they had to rebuild once already.
Incidents where JP was having inappropriate behavior with little ones in the church. And there may be lawsuits. We talked about this previously. We don't know if there's lawsuits coming from maybe those particular victims in the church or if there are others. So there'll be more on that news coming on that soon. And when there is, I'll bring it to you. But remember, the talks were that JP had apparently lost everybody in the church. He had to rebuild it. Allison talked about this and how everyone just left, but he was somehow able to, remember, JP admitted, he had an addiction to this sort of inappropriate behavior. And he was approached by people in the church that told him that he needed to go get counseling, he needed therapy, and he refused. So he lost everybody, but then he rebuilt the church and apparently built it up to close to 500, 700 people. So this would, and if we're going off the fact that he only has about 30 people left, and they're the loyalists, they're the people that he may have something on, does he at this point have the ability to rebuild again and to bring more people into the church like he did before? Because now, that was different. That wasn't stuff that made national news, that was just more quiet on the local
hundreds of millions of views on TikTok and all the other platforms
level. So he was able to do it, use his personality, his charm, whatever the case, bring people in. But now things are completely different. This is a case that has been known worldwide. There is justice for Mica going all around the world, from Pakistan to Canada, Australia, Spain. I've heard from people all over the world. So with the doors to Solid Rock being locked, again, the rock is locked. What does that mean?
Oh my God. # lock the rock. Stop it.
That was easy.
Lock the rock. That's crazy. Let's keep going.
Is this now even a church? Or are we now looking at a situation to where Solid Rock has now, and many have argued that it already was, but has become a cult? Because if an average family can't get into the church and they want to worship, and remember, JP needs the money, right? The tithing and everything else like that. and you would think that he would want new people to come to the church. What happens now? They can't get in. They can't get in. They can't tithe to you. How are you going to be able to keep the doors open at this point? If this is now just going to be a situation where every Sunday is just the loyalists meeting there, what in the world is actually going on inside those walls? I've been saying this for weeks now. Now, you can understand that maybe they don't want new people in there because they don't want things being recorded. They don't want, people to find out from the outside about is it just a rallying cry on the inside of those walls for the loyalists? Are they?
Oh man, can you imagine somebody goes in there and then JP does a sermon where he's like, I know we have a mole. There's a mole in our midst.
Plotting? Are they planning? What is actually going on? Because if you're not going to allow people to come in and worship, then are you a church anymore? I think it's a valid question to ask. What is the end goal here when it comes to Solid Rock? And also, let me say this, because the protesters said that the only way they would leave under two conditions. One, either Solid Rock closes its doors or JP is in handcuffs. Well, Solid Rock has locked their doors. Is that the same thing? Have the protesters won? Now, I think they have won in many ways. I do. Because as they sit out there and they chant justice for Mica, look, and I think they know. JP knows, Tricia Ross knows, Charles Randall knows, Susie Skinner knows that people aren't, I think they know it's over, basically, okay? But they're going to continue to meet there every single Sunday despite it. And again, I don't look at it as an actual church service that's going on the inside of those walls. Maybe, I guess there's a slight chance, but in my opinion, I just don't feel that's what's taking place. So if you're locking things up, it's almost like it's becoming an invite-only type of a service. And again, with a cult,
whoa, service by invite only.
Can anybody just come into the cult? No, you got to be welcomed in, right? You got to go through some things to get in.
Some vetting.
There were reports weeks back that there were inquiries about the church, females that were allegedly asking questions about Solid Rock and on the Facebook, and JP was replying back to them and sending them his picture. Kind of weird, right?
What? Holy macaroni.
And is that the way that people are going to get into the doors at Solid Rock? I mean, there were all sorts of talks about, how JP would sit down with couples and people and go over their finances for the tithing to become members and everything else like that. Just weird stuff.
What? You had to meet with JP for him to go over your finances so he could be like, well, this is what 10% looks like.
And now I don't know if July 28th was maybe some of you that are at the protest, you can clarify in the comments.
Because you don't love us anymore. Of course I do.
Comments if you want. Was July 28th the first week that the doors were locked when services were quote unquote going on? Was it or has this been going on for weeks? And are we going to see this again going forward? Remember, barricades, attempt to put up a fence. It's a nightmare out there. It's a big mess. So I think this is going to be enough for the protesters to stop? No. I think they're doing a great thing, not only bringing justice for Mica, but they're saving other families and other people from getting sucked into the JP vortex, right? Like I said, they talked to that couple out there that tried to get in. The doors were locked. So they're almost acting as, almost their own barricade, like they're saving people from going in. So again, it's just the loyalists that are going in at this point. But how is Solid Rock going to keep the lights on? Remember, the tithing is stopped. No one's giving the money. JP's spending a lot of money on lawyers, on different lawsuits, and maybe the stuff with Allison and the custody for their own kids. So there's so much going on here that I think if the protesters were to leave, then maybe they would see that as an opportunity. Okay, now we can open up the doors. They're gone, and now nobody will even suspect anything that's going on, and we can bring in new people. So I think the protesters are doing a good thing. I would think that they would just have to completely stop meeting altogether, maybe in order for them to, move along. So yeah, there's a lot. I said a lot here, but there was a lot to talk about. So that's why I titled the video, Solid Rock, John Paul closes the doors, because that's essentially what has happened. Now, if the outside public can't come in and worship, then what are you doing? What in the world is going on inside those walls of Solid Rock Church?